Hey everybody, this is Max, and welcome to another Max Bytes, my mini podcast I do for all my followers. How's everybody doing? Max Bytes, I try to give comfort, some moral clarity to the insanity. There's a lot of it these days. It's a crazy world we live in, right? And um, and hopefully just lighten up your day a little bit. That's what Max Bytes is about. Anyway, I just want to say up front right away that my mother's doing great. Thank you for all the prayers. I've had some people ask me about that. And if you don't remember, I'll just quickly say my mother had cancer 3 years ago, and the Lord completely healed her. She went through an operation, and the Lord blessed the hands of the physician, and she's doing wonderful, and she's doing great. But if you could, I'd keep my aunt in your prayers. I would appreciate that. Some of you that follow me really closely know that my aunt's had some health issues as well. So it's been a real trial for the family, and I would appreciate prayers for her physical healing. But otherwise, everybody's great. So thank you. I'm doing great, and everybody else is doing great. And if you have a prayer request, I would say to you to send it to Jackie. Does everybody remember Jackie? She's my Max Warrior, one of my assistants. She's been with me for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, and she usually took care of the prayer requests. You can always send prayer requests in, and I post them. And she's got Jackie has a long list of prayer requests that she would repost and update, and even with praise reports. So if you have anything like that, but Jackie herself is not doing too well these days. She's been pretty sick, so if you can keep her in your prayers as well. And if you have a prayer request, go ahead and send it to Roxy Balboa, the number one, at gmail.com, or you can message her at Roxy underscore Balboa, or you can contact Julie, or you can contact Eyes, my other assistants. These are my angels, so you're welcome to reach out to them and just forward it to them, and we'll take it from there. But anyways, I hope everybody's doing good. So let me just go through. This will be real short. I'm going to go through some of the political updates and the election updates, what have you, and just kind of just give my insight. And I'll follow this up with probably another part eventually, and on some of these topics. But anyway, let's talk about the election news, because I know there's a lot of confusion about the polling and confusion about where the election's at. So let me give you an update, a brief update right now. So the generic ballot for the House on the Real Clear Politics average, and I use the Real Clear Politics average, and I make no apology for that because I believe in aggregate sites that aggregate polls basically, and this way you can look at the trends. I don't look at any particular single poll. If you do that, you start cherry picking, and then your bias comes in, and you're not being very objective. Certainly not scientific. So I just take I have to look at all the polls and just take an average. So I'm looking at it, and right now it's pretty narrow. It's not narrow, but it's not extremely wide. Democrats are ahead by 5.3%. Okay, in the average. But if you go back 8 years ago, where were they at the end of July? They were at about a 7.3% average. But by the middle of August of 2018, it had narrowed to 3.9%. And that fluctuation happens. That's some of the polls had statistical noise, which is like variations of like 2 or 3 points, and sometimes they have swings. You also had some outliers that were thrown in there, obviously, or they may have been outliers, depending on your point of view. But at the end of the day, by September-ish, that had opened up again to like an 8-point lead by late September. And then it ended, the last aggregate had the Democrats at 49.7, so 50%. That was just before the election, a few days before the election. Republicans at 42.4%, and the actual results were Republicans at 44.9%, so it undercut Republicans, or underrepresented Republicans, by 2.5 points. Usually the polls do that. And it underrepresented Democrats by about 3.5 points, 3.6%. Is what I'm seeing. 53.3 was the final results for Democrats. 49.7 was the RCP average right before the election. So both sides were underrepresented. So the Democrats were ahead 7.3 the final day, which is what they were at on this day, roughly about this day, 8 years ago. and at the end of the cycle, they finished at 8.4% lead. Okay, so extrapolating from that, if you look at it now, I mean, if things stay the same, and they've been somewhat similar, although it's been a little more narrow for the year. Democrats have been ahead all year, but we'll have to wait and see. Ask me again about a month from now. And so we'll be able to look at this. I think there's a possibility that that it'll narrow somewhat, and then it may open a little bit back to where it is now. But I haven't seen. There's been brief periods through this whole cycle where they've been ahead by 7 points or more, and it hasn't looked like you see with the 2018 results. You see these times early in the cycle. You see a lot more. It looks like 8% leads, 7% leads, 7% leads. There's less of those, but it has been narrow. It was narrow at times as well. You know, it was a 4-point lead in May of 2018, for instance. So there have been very narrow points too. So at the end of the day, it's like a wash when you look at it. Now, one of the biggest caveats to the midterms, and it's an unknown territory. It's making it hard to say how this is going to go. Is the gerrymandering wars? Republicans did come out ahead in the gerrymandering wars, but at the end of the day, we don't know how a lot of those districts are going to vote. Like, for instance, something I've been saying over and over again on Premium, and if you're not a member of Maximus Premium, you should be a Maximus Premium member. We call them MPs. I started Maximus Premium 4 years ago. And reach out to Roxy. Email her at Roxy Balboa #1 at gmail.com, or message her on Twitter, X, or Telegram at Roxy_Balboa. Tell her you want to join. Okay. We have a special this month for those that want to join and try it out. Reach out to her and she'll give you the details on that. On Premium is where I post all my articles, links to my podcasts. You become a member of Max's Garage, my chat, where we can chat and discuss things, drop questions. It's like almost like a high-tech messaging board, and get all your questions answered. And there's so much more. We haven't gotten even to the seminars yet. But anyway, at the end of the day, when the Democrats being ahead this much, whether they're ahead by 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like I was saying, we don't know what the gerrymandering wars are going to result in. It looks like on paper, Republicans will pick up a net of 5 or 6 seats. Okay, but we're banking a lot on how the Mexicans vote, the Hispanic vote. I don't want to say Mexican vote. That was rude. Sorry. The Hispanic vote is going to be in southern Texas, for instance, because they voted for President Trump in 2024. But historically, Hispanics vote Democrat, even in Texas. Not as much. There are more than that vote Republican in Texas, and Republicans have done well with them at times. But historically, they still, in the presidential races, they do vote Democrat. In congressional races, they do vote Democrat. The anomaly, or a little asterisk you have to put there, is what happened in 24 when Trump did tremendous with Hispanics. I know all about this. This was a great, great period. But we don't know, because his approval rating now is very much underwater. I think his approval rating with Hispanics is in the high 20s to low 30s, and with and the disapproval is around 60 roughly with Hispanics. So in every state, it's almost the same, where there are large Hispanic populations. So we don't know how those districts are going to vote. Now, you say, well, what does it have to do with President Trump's approval rating? Everything has to do with President Trump's approval rating. I have to be honest with everybody, because I'm honest with people, whether you want to hear it or not. Sorry, but it's the truth. It doesn't matter if it's Republican or Democrat. Every midterm is a referendum on the president. That's what it amounts to. Now, some presidents do better than others, but there are 2 big exceptions to the rule that the incumbent party loses seats in the House. And that is 2002 and 1934. If you go back and look at those midterm elections, that's over the course of the last roughly, 90 years, 95 years. So what happened in 2002? Well, George Bush led the Republican Party, and the GOP actually picked up seats in the House, defied history. But it was wartime. President Bush's approval rating was like around the high, it had peaked at 90%. I'm not sure what it was in November of 2002, but don't forget, in November, October/November of 2001, if memory serves, I think was when the late World Series was being played, and George Bush went to New York, and he was in the old Yankee Stadium, and he stood up there and he got a standing ovation from a bunch of people that had voted against him less than a year earlier because he was not popular in New York, or he was very. This was the remember George Bush won a controversial election in 2000, and so he was that's how popular he had cross board a board approval at that moment in time, and so it carried over into the midterms the following year. So that's what I'm saying is that there's reasons for these things happening. In 1934, of course, FDR was considered the savior of the country, and the Republicans were hated and they're blamed for unfairly for the Great Depression. So these are factors you have to consider. But back to what I was saying. So we really don't know where all this is going to shake out at the end of the day. The advantage is still with the Democrats picking up some seats, and they only have to pick up a net of what, like 4 or 5, 3, 4 or 5, depending on whose totals you're looking at, roughly. And historically, I think the swing is over double digits, usually 12 or 15 seats usually swing. In 2018, they swung 40. I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm going to be talking more about this at Civics Maximus 2026, and that the encore is coming up for that in August. So reach out to Roxy if you'd like to get a seat. It's a 2-day seminar. I'm going to go through state by state, every race, House, Senate, gubernatorial seats, and state legislatures. It's a lot of fun. I do these every 2 years, and I early predict, or as I like to say, early predict. This doesn't make it's sort of redundant, right? But I like to make my early calls on those races just for the fun of it, so we can see how accurate I'm going to be. But if you'd like to attend that, reach out to Roxy. Also, like I said, become a premium member, and we're always updating this information on premium. So if I was you, it's kind of early yet. Let's see where things are at. If these polls shrink further, and I like to look at historical trends, history, big important word there. If you want to know what's going to happen, just look at the past, and that's true for everything. I think we have to wait and see how the election's going to turn out. Still, it's kind of early at this time. I'm not going to get into any really bold statements here. This is going to be interesting just to see how things shake out. I think the gerrymandering is going to play an important part in that. So let's not get worried. We haven't lost everything yet. The Senate looks really good, and I think we have some really good. Having said all of that, I know some people are upset, like for instance with Iran, and there are people within our own party that spend more time attacking conservatives, fellow conservatives, and Republicans than they do attacking Democrats and liberals, which is like, well, you're just doing the work of the devil at that point because you're not helping anything. A divided house falls, and the left loves it if we're eating each other. Now, the left has been doing a lot of that lately, too. They're having their own civil war. They're having a full-out civil war. And I'll talk more about that in a second. But I know some people are upset. And I'm going to tell you something. I understand that. But people have different views. We have to keep in mind that we have a big tent. We have people with different viewpoints. I'm not advocating any people that are calling for any kind of hate or violence, or those people out there need to be, discouraged and thrown out of the party and basically purged. They just removed from it, and I don't have anything to do with those people if they're a bunch of bigots. But I'm just talking about people that may have differences of opinion, let's say, like I said, over Iran. I'm of the opinion that, look, I'm glad someone is doing something about a country that is aspiring to develop nuclear weapons, whether or not they actually go through with it, or whether it was an imminent threat. Because they were only 2 weeks away from developing a nuclear weapon, and they've been 2 weeks away from developing a nuclear weapon for 22 years, but they're 2 weeks away closer now than they were 2 weeks ago. How 2 weeks away are they, though? I mean, that's the kind of, I always laugh whenever I think that was a skit on the internet, wasn't it? Or something like that. I don't know. But, no. I had this discussion at 4th of July at dinner, actually, with a friend of mine, with my cousin, who's is big a MAGA, Republican as you could possibly find. But we were having this debate actually, is like, oh, with this. On the other hand, I think I understand people who are concerned of it escalating into a wider conflict. I think the Iranians couldn't care less because they're psychotic and they're not our friends. I think that we need to support the president. We need to support, of course, our soldiers that are in harm's way. I'm most worried about them. And I think it's very important for us to work with our allies, the Gulf states and Europe, in putting together a global coalition that can help police the strait to open it up, and if necessary, eventually surround Iran and do something about the problem. But I think that regime change is going to have to come from within, and that's going to take years of working on the ground covertly to undermine the country's government, that country's government. And that's a painstaking process of identifying people that are willing to defect, organizing resistance, arming people, training them, the indigenous people, and leading them, if, in some cases, in internal civil conflict with their own government. And that's on top of crippling sanctions. One thing, you got to stop their oil exports to China, and I think President Trump started to address this with the blockade that he put in place. That should have been done from the beginning. And it always helps to have a bunch of European and Gulf allies on board. We did have a lot of the Gulf states on board, kind of, but we didn't get any of our European allies on board from the get-go, and we should have done that. But these are things that can be addressed, and I think it's important that we just support everybody. We got some great people there in Marco Rubio, of course, President Trump, Pete Hegseth. There's a lot of people that are kind of have their wits about them. And whether or not everybody makes the right decision is another thing. But people can have differences of opinion on this, and we can do this. But the point is this: I'm looking at the bigger picture. Let's look down at the elections. And right now, this is something that's bothering people, and it's certainly bothered oil prices, which is affecting gas prices, which is affecting the price of goods, on top of everything else that's been affecting the price of goods. And so as a result, it's causing a lot of problems, and it may impact the election results and skew them against us. And we have to be mindful of that. And that's why we should not be attacking each other. And we need to make sure we get people registered to Republican. We get them to the polls on election day. We have them vote early where it's available. And where necessary, if you're in a Democrat state and that's all you have is, mail-in ballots, making sure you get your mail-in ballots at the ballot place on time, because it's going to be vitally important. We have Republican seats that are in possible jeopardy in places like New York and California. You can't just pretend they don't exist, and we want to protect those seats because they were close elections in 24 and in 22 and in 2020. So we'll talk more about this on a later Max Bytes. But again, I discuss all these things daily on Maximus Premium. And if you join Maximus Premium, you get all this and more. And you could, immerse yourself in the mind of Max, as some people like to say, and pick my brain, as some of my students say, which is always fun. And we can debate and we can discuss things. But let me just say this. Take, for instance, Arizona. Arizona is an important state. It's going to be important. It was an important state in 2020, and 2022, and 2024, and 2026 is equally important. Every top office, Secretary of State, Attorney General, Governor, run by Democrats. Almost every top office. I think their treasurer is Republican. But and they also have five or six of their House seats. I think it's six, actually. Six of their House seats are Republican, and a couple of them are in jeopardy. It is vitally important, if you're in Arizona, that you get people registered Republican, and you get them to the polls, and you get them to vote Republican. Andy Biggs is the Republican nominee for governor. I don't care what you think about him. Some people don't like him for some reason. I don't have a dog in this race, but I'm just saying, you got it. Vote for Biggs, for instance. And I'm not, saying this lightheartedly or just throwing that out there. I'm saying that this is important. You got to get that crazy attorney general out of there. You got to get that crazy Secretary of State out of there, and that's it. And the Democrats, you got to vote them out. You got to vote for the Republicans. I'm saying this is an example because that state's going to be critical in 2028. Also, just for their own, the Republican, Arizona leans right. It's mostly a Republican state, but they ticket split a lot. They just do historically. You can see them doing it through the 80s. They had Democrat governors in the 80s and then in the 2000s. They had one Democrat senator and one Republican senator in the 80s and early 90s. They just do this. They have a habit of ticket splitting, but they always voted Republican in the presidential races. And so I'm just saying that's an example right there is an important state in the midterms. Texas, another important state. If you're in Texas, get out there and help Paxton. You may not like him. I know some Republicans in Texas that don't like him. Well, okay, but I'm not questioning why they don't like him or not. But now he's the nominee. Get behind him and get him elected because you can't let the other guy get in there. I mean, he's weird. I mean, no, it's not just it's literally some of his doctrinal beliefs. Don't even get me started. Kind of weird. So I don't go for that. Now, I'm going to say this quickly. I want to just leave with this, and I'll do more on this in the next broadcast. And by the way, leave a comment, give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate all of that. And again, reach out. I would appreciate you reaching out to Roxy Balboa, #1 at gmail.com. Ask her about premium. I'd like you to become a member, especially for the midterms out there coming up. People that join up as annual members, and we do have different tiers. We have different tiers of annual membership. They that join up for get discounts on seminars, and also they get a month free of premium if they come on as an annual member. So if you're a monthly member, also make sure you upgrade to an annual membership. You get a month free of premium. It actually saves you money. But I just want to like all this talk about the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America. Okay, that's their civil war that's going on now. Hopefully, they keep fighting amongst themselves, and I really hope the traditional liberal or more central left Democrats win that war, because I don't want a political party that's socialist ever winning elections, not nationwide. That's really horrifying. But I want to put people's mind at ease here, right? Let's say worst case scenario, the DSA takes over and eventually they elect one of their own president. Some of the things they have in their manifest is crazy. Like they want to abolish the Supreme Court. This is what I've been told. Okay. They want to abolish the Senate. Okay, for instance. They also want to do some other crazy things with the House and everything. But I just want to say they can't do either of those things. It's impossible. It can't happen. For instance, they can't abolish the Supreme Court. Okay. Well, let me just put it to you like this. Let me start with the. I'll start with that. Article 3 of the U.S. Constitution vests power in one Supreme Court. Okay, it establishes it, and it only gives Congress the power to add additional inferior courts or remove them from time to time. You can't abolish the Supreme Court. It's not allowed constitutionally. So no constitutional amendment will abolish the Supreme Court. It wouldn't be constitutional, that amendment. So you can't do that. It's not allowed. Okay. Similarly, when it comes to the U.S. Senate, you can't abolish the U.S. Senate, and I'll tell you why. Because Article 5 of the Constitution explicitly says, when giving the Constitutional Convention, that's the clause that establishes the amendment process, okay? And it says that you can call a convention of the states and all of that. So everybody loves Article 5 because of the convention of the states, although the last convention of the states we had established the U.S. Constitution, was to amend the Articles of the Confederation. By the way, if you want to learn more about civics and have fun with me over the course of 1, 2, or 3 nights, reach out to Roxy again, Roxy Balboa, #1 at gmail.com. Ask her about my civics courses that I do. I teach those every month. And we have different civics seminars, discounts for children, and major discounts for children. And if children sign up for it, or you sign your children up for it, parents can attend for free. But I want to say you can't abolish the Senate because Article 5 has the suffrage clause in it. And it says explicitly, it says, on a quote from it, and no state without its consent shall be deprived of its equal suffrage in the Senate. So it says that in the amendment process. So in other words, you can't call a convention of the states, nor can you get Congress to pass an amendment that will deny states equal suffrage, which means they each get equal representation, 2 senators apiece despite their size. So there's no way. So I know socialists hate, um, and Democrats don't really like that much unless they're in charge. But I know socialists really hate the U.S. Senate. A lot of liberals do that don't think it out about the bicameral system we have, and they don't appreciate the Great Compromise. They don't like any of those things. But you can't get rid of the Senate, and you can't get rid of the Supreme Court through the amendment process. And by the way, just so you understand how difficult the amendment process is, the Article 5 convention hasn't happened for 200 and roughly 40 years. I'm just randomly putting a number up there, but it was about 200, if I remember correctly, and like 39 years ago or something like that, when the Constitution was adopted in 1787. But the amendment process has been used by Congress to pass 27 amendments to the U.S. Constitution, the first 10 being the Bill of Rights. Okay, the difficulty in that is extremely high. The bar is set very high. The Congress itself, the Senate and the House, have to each pass a joint resolution by 2/3 supermajority, which is 67 senators today, and about 200, if I remember correctly, 80 or 90 U.S. House members. And then you have to have 3/4 of the states ratify it, and that's 38 states currently. Okay, so that's not going to happen. So you can't get the red states can't do it if they want to pass their amendment, like a balanced budget amendment. The blue states, without the help of the blue states can't do it without the help of the red states. It's never going to happen. And then the Democrats are even split on this. You're never even going to get Democrat support enough for this. Forget about the Republicans and independents are firmly against anything like this. So, and then you got to figure something. What senator is going to vote to abolish their job? It's never going to happen, even if they could do it. And even if you try to pass an amendment to abolish the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court's going to rule it unconstitutional anyway. But it's of course unconstitutional to begin with. So you may have a constitutional crisis for a bit, but it's not going to happen. So rest assured, even if the DSA was to take over, they just can't do it. Absent a revolution, which is exactly what communists want in this country. And with that note, I'm going to leave you for today. And I'm going to tell you to be happy and trust the Lord. And again, reach out to Roxy at Roxy_Balboa at Telegram and on X. Message her. If you don't have an account yet, make an account and message her and tell her you're interested in joining Premium or give you more details on it. You want to take advantage of this month's discount. Also, sign up for one of my upcoming seminars, Civics Maximus 2026. The Encore is the next one. And in the fall, we will be doing live election night coverage. Of course, I'll also be holding a special final projections seminar. And a lot of other great stuff is coming up that I'll be rolling out in the coming weeks. So anyways, God bless you all. I hope you are well. And remember to trust the Lord, because in Him you find eternal peace. And that means even in this life, as we are right now. God bless everybody, and I hope to see you soon. Ciao.